Constitutional underpinnings. Yup, let's talk about that. Well, government, let's first define, put it on this side, government, right here, right there. Government is composed of the formal and informal institutions, people, and used to create and conduct public policy. And there are several types of government, but the U.S. government is a representative democracy where citizens choose representatives to make decisions for them. First of all, we had the Articles of Confederation, which sort of failed. It was not a very good type of government for several reasons. It could not draft soldiers in response to the Shays Rebellion, which was a group of farmers who rebelled against the government for 6 months. And yeah, they could not draft soldiers in response to that. And a couple of other faults with the Articles of Confederation was that it was completely dependent on the state legislators for revenue, and they cannot tax the citizens, basically. And since they could not pay or tax the citizens, they cannot pay off the debt, the Revolutionary War debt, and they cannot control trade between the states, and they had no court, and they had no national currency, so all the states had like their own money, and they could choose to accept it or not. So that was kind of silly. And they had no control over import and export taxes imposed between states, and they needed unanimity to amend the articles, and needed approval from 9 of 13 states to pass legislation, which is like very hard to get that done. So yeah, that's what's wrong with the Articles of Confederation. So they decided to make a new form of government, which is what we have now. So the Constitution was made, and it was made in the sense that it distributed the powers of the government equally to a legislative branch, executive branch, and a judicial branch. In this image, you can briefly get a picture of how the different branches checked and balanced each other out. The executive branch was composed of the president and all his advisors or cabinet members. The legislative system was composed of a bicameral legislation. The House, the House of Representatives, which had representatives based on population of the states, and the Senate, which had equal distribution for all the states, and it had 2 representatives from each state. And there was the judicial branch, which included the Supreme Court. And through these divisions of government, the power was equally distributed so that it could not accumulate into one person or group of people to rule over the people like a tyranny. This is also known as separation of powers. Naturally, there were 2 types of people who agreed and disagreed with the forming of the Constitution, and these were Federalists and Anti-Federalists. And the Federalists created or wrote essays called the Federalist Papers. The composers of the Federalist Paper were James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. And in the essays, it showed everyone how the government worked and how the powers were equally separated. Here is a picture that shows the differences between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The government operates under federalism, which is when the state government and the national government share powers together and govern the people accordingly with their own powers. As you can see in this image where it shows the powers of the national government, the state government, and the shared powers between them.